Hello ladies and gents, Jarek Defiler here to take a glimpse into one of the best roguelikes I have ever had the pleasure to experience, Hades. Now, although I do enjoy roguelikes and have dabbled in them a bit, for instance you can check out my Slay the Spire videos, I wouldn't necessarily say that the roguelike genre is a big part of my gaming repertoire. I respect the genre, mind you, I enjoy it when done right, but I still place other genres higher when it comes to my particular entertainment consumption. So when I discuss roguelikes here, keep in mind that I may not be as up to date on the genre as many other gamers. So with that out of the way, I thought I'd do a patient gaming video on a game that I consider perhaps the closest to perfection than any I have ever played, Hades. For starters, Hades was developed by the spectacular Supergiant Games. This little indie studio seems to be incapable of making a bad game. Virtually everything they come out with, which is just 4 titles so far, has been fantastic. I highly recommend taking a look at their other titles, but we're here to talk about Hades, so let's get to it. Hades is a roguelike dungeon crawler based off of Greek mythology. You play as the son of Hades, Zagreus, who is trying to escape his home/prison by fighting his way through Hades in order to reach Mount Olympus. Like most roguelikes, you must conquer room after room or biome after biome of procedurally generated challenges, and when you die, you simply restart at the ground level, like every other roguelike. But each time you die, something happens. You start unlocking dialogue options from some of Hades' denizens, who then may give you assistance later on if you give them some various offerings. And this allows each dungeon run to feel meaningful as you progress and unlock more goodies. As the journey unfolds, you are introduced and assisted by your various aunt and uncle gods of the Olympian pantheon, as well as some minor notable figures and deities that many of you may be familiar with. I don't want to give away any explicit spoilers here, but when you do escape Hades, thus beating the run, there is a reason why you will want to continue playing again and again in roguelike fashion that not only comes off as fluid and organic, but also ties in perfectly with the story. The developers were really careful to make replaying the game feel purposeful, not only from a gameplay mechanic perspective, but a narrative one as well. And I do love me a good story. So how does the gameplay actually fare? Well, awesomely is the answer to that. On your first run, you will simply have a large two-handed sword, which oddly enough is my favorite weapon in the game, despite being arguably the weakest. But as you progress, you will unlock others, a shield, spear, bow, a gun, and these giant fisting gauntlets of fistiness that are a lot of fun. Now you might think, only 6 weapons for a roguelike? What the hell, man, that's nothing! Well, looks can be deceiving. You see, with each weapon comes 4 different aspects that you can unlock and upgrade. Each aspect changes the weapon's style drastically. This can be something simple like increased attack damage, speed, or health, or a bit more complex options like changing the AoE ability to become something entirely different, or even giving you enemy-seeking arrows with the bow. Throw these aspects in with the game's boon system and you have a plethora of options to form some insanely varied and unique build styles with each run. Hades is like that. It looks simple on the surface, but underneath is a vast, deep foundation of innovation, creativity, and all-out ingenuity. Speaking of boons, these are the bread and butter of the game. The boon system is an exceptionally intriguing mechanic that I find engaging and fundamentally complex. As you progress in the game, you will be introduced to various Olympian gods that will offer you these boons to assist you on your journey. Each god has their own style, and their boons are testament to that. For instance, Artemis, goddess of the hunt, will grant you boons that tend to boost critical hits in your cast ability, while Aphrodite, that sexy little minx, will give you boons that charm and weaken enemies. Athena grants defensive boons with things like Deflect, and Hermes, my personal favorite, grants boons that boost mobility, attack speed, and evasion and dash abilities. There are plenty more, but you get the idea. The boons tie in perfectly with the gods' own personalities and themes. It's loads of fun and works great from an immersive as well as narrative standpoint. But it doesn't end there, no siree. The boons themselves have a tier system. There are common boons, rare boons, epic and heroic that are obviously far more powerful, but there are also a few that are legendary and even duo boons, which are a culmination of 2 Olympian god boons that combine the powers of both. In order to unlock those, you have to possess specific boons from each god, however. So it's like a crafting light system that is based mostly on RNG, but it's still fun nonetheless. There are also chaos boons that you may occasionally stumble upon that grant you a fairly powerful buff if you are able to survive a few rooms of their curse. Some of these can be fairly gnarly, but if you beat the curse, then they can be a huge boost to your beef. But it goes even further. Many boons will be different based on your weapon type. For instance, a boon that might affect your cast ability, which is a powerful spell ability, may vary depending on the weapon. So given the sheer number of boons in this fantastic game, you are given a huge amount of build options depending on what route you take through any given room. Basically, generally, each room has 2 exit options that grant a reward, which are often 2 boons from different gods. These are all randomized, mind you, but once you learn each god's style and the boons themselves, then you can start planning a build with what they give you. And as you progress up the dungeon, you do have the option to go to a store where you can buy boons if you wish, and the gods will allow you to replace certain boon slots with their own boons if you're not happy with what you have. Boons. There will be a lot of trial and error naturally, as some builds will just not be that great while others will be powerhouses, but it never feels cheap or frustrating because of the game's pacing and ability to give information to the player. You always feel like you're gaining something, even in death. That, ladies and gentlemen, is how to create a good roguelike dungeon crawler. Since we mentioned death, how is it treated in Hades? I already noted that if you die you start over, obviously given the roguelike genre, but how does it work towards overall progression? Well, it gives you the ability to unlock tons and tons of stuff. There's a variety of currencies in the game that can be used to improve your home base in Hades, such as unlocking things in your room that allow you to upgrade certain passives that change your character in various ways, or you can unlock these base upgrades that allow you to gain more healing from fountains or get more rewards from treasure troves, among other things. There are a ton of upgrades and unlocks throughout Hades, but Supergiant Games doesn't make the mistake of making them boring. They aren't all just things like, oh, this upgrade gives you 5 more HP, or this one gives you 10 more damage, yay. No. They have upgrades that will fundamentally change the dynamic of your playstyle. That shield you were running around meleeing everyone with is now a deadly bouncing projectile like Captain America's flying star. That bow you were sniping people with is now a closer ranged AoE shrapnel cannon. There are wildly varied options that mix up the combat so much that each run is like you're playing a different game. Again, it's fantastic. Then there's the game's theme. I love Greek mythology. Being an English major, I had to read a decent amount of it, and something about it just hooked me. I loved that the gods weren't these perfect, all-powerful beings. They were, in fact, just superhumans, really. They each have their own dislikes, likes, loves, hatreds, pettiness, selfishness, and they're all jealous of each other, but overall they have their own agenda. Hades captures the essence of this fantastically without derailing the player from the gameplay. The pacing of giving you information between combat via the gods is so well done that it doesn't distract you or take you out of the immersion at all. Supergiant did an excellent job at giving you some rest periods without hitting you with a massive interruption wall that pulls you out of the gameplay. It's also smooth and organic. How they struck a balance there I'll never know, but I assume it was by keeping the dialogue to a minimum while giving you plenty of it over the course of several runs. I've played a good 30 plus hours on this game and did runs in the dozens, beat a few, and I still have new dialogue options coming in and things to unlock, gameplay and story-wise. Again, it's fantastic. The art design is very much Supergiant Games in that it's amazing, albeit subjective, but I adore their style and have yet to see any criticism in that aspect. And given the simpler graphical design, I assume it allows the game to run on virtually any rig. I have it on highest possible settings and I haven't gotten so much as a hiccup. However, I do have a fairly powerful computer. Now, the sound design is also spectacular as well as the voice acting. Each character sounds precisely as you'd expect, and the voice actors are all great in my opinion. Not a single moment of cringe wincing or rolling my eyes, not even so much as a sigh.
Just take it easy now. You got there once. There isn't any question in my mind that you can do it once again. Your father's acting as though nothing's changed besides. So don't lose hope. You're capable of this.
I hope you're right.
What do you want from me? Leave me alone. We've nothing to discuss here anymore.
I was just checking up on you. Just let me know if you wanted to talk for any reason.
I'm not interested in having company, especially from you. You stay the hell away while I'm off duty.
There are many things that I am not at liberty to speak of, child, through my own binding choice. These circumstances are among them. Suffice it to say that your revival required the extent of my ability and considerable time.
I never should have been born. Is that what the Fates wanted? Did you defy your own daughters?
Silence. Tempt not my daughters thus.
And I can't end this video without mentioning the oh-so-awesome music by Darren Korb and his rockin' mutton chops. Mr. Korb has been with Supergiant Games since the beginning and has composed the soundtrack for all their games, and he pops out another great one with Hades. His style is very unique but also thematic in that each soundtrack is fused with the theme of the game. For instance, the Bastion soundtrack had a bit of a westerner style sound to it, and Hades has a more exotic Mediterranean tint in my opinion anyways. I could be wrong, but either way, the music is great and I have it on my instrumental playlist on my phone for those days when you just need something chill to listen to. So, given everything discussed here, I can honestly say that in my humbly awesome opinion, Hades is one of the most perfect games I have ever played. It's not even in my top 10 favorite games, but I must admit that I find it to be virtually flawless. The art style and theme is great, the gameplay and mechanics are top-notch, the roguelike element is executed perfectly, the progression system is well-paced and never boring, the story is engaging, and the characters are unique and interesting, even the lower-level NPCs. The combat is captivating and the boon system is inspiring. I really thought about what my criticisms would be for Hades, and everything I came up with was simply subjective and didn't have any real justification against the game. I was thinking about how some of the weapons are just not great compared to the others, but then I read some people's reviews about how those weapons I was criticizing are in fact their favorites, and it made me rethink my previous assumption. I could try and argue about how the RNG from the boon system could be off at times, but given the options to pick between them, replace them, and buy more in shops, the problem there was me, not the game. Every supposed criticism I had turned out to be just my own stupidity. Thus, I can't really say anything negative about the game, to be honest, and that is something I never thought I would admit to. So, if you're interested in this year-old title, I highly recommend you give Hades a chance, even at full price, because it's more than worth it, and if you're into roguelikes, then this will probably be right up your alley. And keep in mind, guys, that we gotta keep supporting the smaller studios. Supergiant Games has been around for a while and they're fairly successful, but there's a lot of indie studios out there that deserve our attention because they're coming out with some really great games, and they're good competition for the big AAA studios that just keep pumping out the same crap, if you know what I'm saying. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you wish. It really helps me out. This has been Jarek Defiler. Take it easy, everyone. Go play some Hades.